FearScape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hello, blanket huggers. Stefan here. On March 28th, 2021, Josh and I received a message through our website's Submit a Sighting form from someone claiming to be Terry R. Rist, the man referenced in Hell Here and the man interviewed by Alan Greenfield in Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts. From there, we received a number of cryptic emails filled with information on places to search for answers to the larger mystery of the quest and journey Josh and I have been on. So we decided, fake or not, we should take it seriously, as much of the information given panned out and definitely opened our eyes to many new things. So we enlisted the help of Astral Stew co-host Santosh and FearScape guest and Greenfield's publisher Olaf Phillips. Together, the four of us have been digging deeper and deeper into not only the true identity of our source of paranormal gold, whether he is the Terry Rist or not, but also into the mystery of the information given us. It has led us to some amazing doors into such things as the secret space program, Hollow Earth, Darrow and Tarot, caves, underground bases, government cover-ups and conspiracies, and so much more. So if you would like to learn more about these emails, Terry's advice on where to look for more high strangeness, and our conversations and discoveries thus far, please become a monthly subscriber to our Patreon called Wristwatch at fearscapepodcast.com/support or patreon.com/fearscapepod. There you can get access to the emails themselves, the WhatsApp conversation about it all with Josh, myself, Santosh, and Olaf, and even any new clues that we have found. You can even join the investigation and add anything you have found to help us dive deeper into the mystery. You will also get access to other FearScape-related things, such as extended interviews with guests not aired on the show, early access to Estes sessions with us and friends, and so much more. Wristwatch is a Patreon exclusive for our most dedicated fans. Join today and discover why the truth is now.
Thank you for tuning in to FearScape Paranormal Podcast. We are on a journey to understand and to discover the phenomena that seems to exist all around the globe. We invite you to join us on this journey into the unknown.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. I am your host, Stefan Gearhart, and I am joined, as always, by my prudent and judicious co-host, Mr. Josh Rutledge. How are you, sir?
Why, thank you very much, sir. I feel so...
Hoity-toity.
Excuse me.
Joshua.
Yeah.
Miffy and I are going to go yachting this weekend.
Miffy, not even Muffy. Ugh, I don't know. Miffy. Ugh. There's a character too, Muffy, from one of my favorite horror movies called April Fool's Day. And it is not Miffy, though. It's Muffy. Both names are gross.
Miffy is a call to One Crazy Summer.
I wouldn't know that movie at all. Wouldn't know that movie at all. Even though I did give you back the same VHS
No.
that I lost 25 years ago.
I have now owned 3 copies of that movie. I have owned 3 copies. 2 I bought for myself. 1 you bought for me off of eBay.
You don't know. I had that saved in a trunk. Whatever. Anyways, we got a really, speaking of traveling through time to go get things, we got a great episode. We're going to be talking about a very, very, very cool topic that I stumbled upon a while back called the Montauk Project. It is loosely related to the Philadelphia experiment, Project Rainbow, a number of different really cool things. That is a potential fake thing. We don't know because there's, no real information from the government on it yet. But there are a number of people that claim to have been a part of this project. So just
keep your pants on, folks. It's gonna be a good one. So let me tell you. But yeah, before we get into that, of course, we got to get to our segmentes, which is French for segments. And the very, very first segment, of course, is the psychic word of the week.
And now, the psychic word of the week.
Psychic word of the week from the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary from June G. Bletzer, PhD. Rest in peace, Honey Bear. I've flipped through the pages and I've landed on page 590. And the phrase that grabbed my attention was star people.
Okay.
Not to be confused with the letter people. For old guys like us from the old PBS series, the letter people, these are not them.
Or the number munchers.
Or the number munchers. I know a number of number munchers. We're going to get on this here. So here's what it says about star people. Star people, soul minds who were born of earthly parents, but who have had past incarnations on other planets, which were more evolved than Earth, and who are here as planetary helpers for the coming age. They show these similarities. They have an unusual blood type. They have low body temperature, feel an urgency to accomplish goals, feel displaced here, yearn for another home, were unplanned children, and are very good artists or musicians. They hear buzzing in their ears when doing psychic work, can perform healings, had an outstanding psychic experience when as a child, for example, a visitation by one administering guidance and comfort. They have frequent dreams that involve multi-moon planet environmental scenes, and they perform their best work at night. Star people.
Well, I mean, I checked like 4 of those boxes.
So then you are an asteroid person then.
Yeah.
You're an asteroid person. I think you're an asteroid hole. No, I've heard this term before. Sometimes it gets loosely traded off with indigo children, but they're very different things. But yeah, we've heard this. We've come across this in different forms throughout our journey here, and even on this show, people have talked about it.
Well, that's like the whole thing around the temperature, being low. My basal body temperature is 97.1.
Yeah, mine, I check every day at work. We have to when we come in,
Yeah.
and mine sits at around 97.5, 97.4, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I'm sure Zen Benefield, I bet you he probably would check all of these. He would definitely be a star person in my mind. If anybody is, it's him. Santosh is probably a star person.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. And who knows? Some of your past life regressions or dreams that you've had may indicate that as well. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who freaking knows?
The shadow knows.
The shadow knows, and so do the Star Lords.
Yep.
Star
Chris
Lords.
Pratt. Chris Pratt knows.
Yep, Chris Pratt knows. Ask him, he'll let you know. Anyways, moving forward, let's get into a brand new segment that we've got that we're going to introduce tonight, which is the Mandela Effect. So let's get cracking with this, okay? I'm really excited about this. So the Mandela Effect, get ready for it.
Did you say mandala?
No, I said Mandela. The Mandela Effect.
All right, so we've got the Mandela Effect, okay? So there are a number of different Mandela effects out there. For those of you that don't know what the Mandela Effect is, real quick, the Mandela Effect is a phenomenon that makes us question even the most mundane memories from the past. In fact, in June 2019, the famed New York Times crossword puzzle made it the theme and defined it as a recent refinement of false memory that typically refers to pop culture or current event references. It was named by paranormal researcher Fiona Broom. It's basically remembering something that doesn't match with historical records. For example, the stuff you use to make your home smell fresh isn't Febreze. Oh, it's not? Interesting. We'll save that one. because I'm like, wait a minute. So anyways, yeah, so false memories here, or as some people believe, the Mandela Effect is simply a shift, a dimensional shift, that at some point some of us were a part of another dimension, and they either got merged or shifted, and we ended up in this dimension. So things were slightly different, and it's a group of folks that believe this, remember these things,
Experience it.
And as we go throughout the journey here, and we go over a lot of these, some of these you're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, I thought that too. And in fact, just trying to go over this with Josh, I gave him 3 examples, and 2 of them he was like, well, wait a minute. Yeah. So, well, the first one that we're going to use, the very first Mandela Effect, is, well, the one that the Mandela Effect is named after, which is Nelson Mandela. This is actually named after him. This is the kind of the big one that sparked this whole thing. There's actually 2 related here, because the first one is really, really simple, and it's the spelling of his name. A lot of people remember it being spelled Mandala, though it is spelled Mandela. And so there's that discrepancy as well, that versus Mandela versus Mandala. So that's a big one. But the main one here is focused on Nelson Mandela's death. So this is the reason we're here. Nelson Mandela died in 2013. However, countless people distinctly remember him dying in prison in the 1980s. Much like Josh, you said you remember that as well.
I do.
And so that's the big one that there's. I do not ever remember him dying in prison. I remember him getting out of prison and becoming president of South Africa. But you also have that memory of him dying in prison. So very, very interesting that there's a perfect example of the Mandela Effect and its effect. Here's 2 of us, and we each have a different memory. So
I wonder, though,
very interesting.
Is your memory influenced by the movie?
What movie?
The movie that was made of him that starred Morgan Freeman?
Never saw it.
Oh.
Never saw it. It's been on my list for a long time, but
hopefully that movie exists. Maybe that's not a...
No, it does. I know the movie you're talking about, but yeah, I never did see it, so I have no earthly clue. I don't remember that at all. I'm gonna throw one more in here just because it's the first time we're doing it. But the big one that really gets people is Looney Tunes. People very, very much remember Looney Tunes, the tunes being spelled Toons, like a cartoon. It has not ever been. It is Tunes, Looney Tunes.
No, that's not right.
Yes, it is right. And I will explain to you why. Because they were trying to riff off of Disney's Merry Melodies. They were trying to do their own version. And so they called it Looney Tunes, because the original Looney Tunes cartoons were in fact musical related cartoons. That's why they were called Looney Tunes. And it just so happens that cartoons later on got shortened to tunes. I said shortened, but shortened to tunes. But yeah, even in the new Space Jam, there's people getting all up in arms because the new Space Jam trailer, he's got a jersey on that says Tunes, Tunes. And so people are mad. So, but yeah, so there's another one, and here's another one where Josh and I split. I don't ever remember it being spelled Toons. I always remember the tunes with the Tunes, like a musical tune.
Well, actually, I'm gonna take it back. So I'm picturing in my head, I think I'm picturing Tiny Toons. And
yes,
in
Tiny Toons is Toon.
But yeah, so maybe that's what it is, because I don't ever really. I mean, I watched Looney Tunes and Syndicate, right? Most of our generation did. So yeah, that's probably. I'm probably remembering it as Tiny Toons.
I tell you what, I wonder if that's where this one comes from, instead of kind of being a mismemory or a dimensional shift. If just people really, especially our generation, grew up watching Tiny Toons, so we assumed, boom, that's how it was too.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Well, that's our first.
That one.
Yeah, so there's the Mandela Effect, Josh. So you guys can look forward to more of that down the road. I have a list of tons tons of them that we can go over. Every year, more and more come out. People are finding there's a massive subreddit that's amazing that will blow your freaking mind.
Is that is that TONS tons or TONNES?
It's TUNNS.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's a third Mandela effect right there. It's like we both had a dimensional shift. I took a dimensional shift last night after dinner.
You just said dimensional?
Did I though, or did you just shift over and that's your memory of it?
Oh, you're shifting.
Check the tape.
Oh, you're shifting me, man. You're shifting me.
You piece of shift. All right.
Oh, I just shift my pants.
Oh man, I'm sorry, listeners. This is not your fault. This is not your fault. All right, let's get moving on to our final segment before we get into the Montauk Project, which is Creepy Ketchup. It's back.
Creepy ketchup. Creepy ketchup. Creepy ketchup. Creepy ketchup. Y'all, it's creepy.
All right, creepy ketchup. We got some creepy ketchup. You do. I've got some minuscule things, so I'll go first to get mine out of the way. Still, not craziness like what happens when we're together, but I've definitely had a few little encounters. Of course, the ghost cats just keep on keeping on here at my house and at work. It keeps happening. I mean, today I saw a ghost cat like 3 times go underneath my desk, man. I'm telling you, it's getting to me. It's getting to me. These cats. I guess I should start bringing some ghost treats.
Yeah, you just take out your hand and rattle it, and then
yep. Just let them. That's all they want is a couple treats. They just want some or those pounce treats. That's all they want. Is some ghost pounce. Friskies. Yeah, there you go. But the other thing is I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago that while at my pool, my sister and I saw our first daytime UAP, way up high above the clouds again, blah, blah, blah. Same thing. Literally saw the same thing this past weekend while I was laying in the same spot. I'm looking out at the sky above the clouds again. Here's this white thing, this white little dot moving all around, like it's moving forward and kind of looked like it was going up to me. I don't know. Maybe it was the cloud moving. I don't know. But then it just blinked out. It was gone again. It was almost like the same thing that I saw with my sister Trisha.
Did you make note of the time and date?
Hell no, I was in the pool, man. I didn't have any pen on me or anything.
Don't you have a watch that's waterproof?
Yeah, but I didn't have it on because I left it upstairs because I have 2 bands. I have one band that isn't waterproof and one that is, and I didn't feel like switching it to the waterproof one, so I didn't wear it.
So it only appears to you whenever you can't make note of the time and date?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I could lick my finger, test the wind, and look at the sun and hope for the best, but, I don't know.
I don't know what testing the wind has to do with the time.
Time shifts dimensionally. Dimensionally.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, that's my creepy catch-up. Just tons of ghost cats and another daytime UAP sighting. What do you got, Josh?
Yeah, so I have had a few things. Yeah, so I've had a couple things. So my brother came out this past weekend, and we did a little backyard fire pit action. Which, by the way, if you're ever in my backyard before I move, I rearranged my stones so it makes it more like a fire pit. Does work so much better. Like the smoke goes up and away from you as opposed to all around you.
So did you bring it in closer and stack it higher or something like that?
Yep.
Very cool. Good idea.
And the heat actually does a really good job of staying right there, so you actually get warmer stuff. So anyways,
cool.
So we went out there to do that. We did a couple Estes sessions. I channeled again my Ingrid friend, and he actually let Stuart ask him questions, so that was pretty cool. And then Stuart I think was doing some channeling. That was pretty cool. We got all that audio. I'm gonna upload it to the drive later for us to listen to. So one of the things that in a channeling session that I had between myself and in the channel, I'd asked for Stuart to be able to see some UAPs that night, and I was like, anything that you can do, that'd be great. So in the channel session with Stuart, the channel said, Josh had asked for a black triangle. I can't pull that off, but I was able to pull some strings, and it ought to be a pretty good show. Okay. So we saw 3 UAPs that night.
Wow. Like
high, like satellite level UAPs, but I checked them against all of the apps that we use, like there wasn't an airplane, wasn't a satellite, wasn't Starlink, wasn't the International Space Station. 2 of them were moving north to south, and one of them was moving south to north. The one that was moving south to north, like when it got almost directly above us, it blinked out.
Maybe they were playing monkey in the middle.
Maybe. But so I thought that was really cool. And then my brother Stuart's session was really weird because he kept feeling like there was something in the woods. Like he kept feeling like there was something in the woods watching us. And in when he did his Estes, it kept telling him, it was like, cross the gate, Stuart. We know you want to. You'll never know such power like you will if you cross the gate.
So tease Stuart with power. that's all that man needs.
So, but yeah, so that was really interesting. And like felt like he was talking to probably 2 or 3 different entities that were coming through.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that was that night. I've had just some crazy dreams lately. I won't talk about each one of the dreams, but just some crazy dreams lately. And then a very fitting topic for tonight, dealing a little bit with time and of course the discussion before with the Mandela Effect. Today we had a little bit of a time shift, I guess. So my daughter had a meeting that was coming up at 5:00 p.m. this afternoon. At 4:58, I said, Lily, it'll be in 2 minutes. I took a load of clothes, put them in the washing machine, started it, came back, helped mother-daughter with a little bit of her homework, and then went back into Lily's room to check and see if the person had joined the session. And I looked at my watch and it was still 4:58. I did like at least 3 or 4 minutes worth of activities and it was still the same time.
Wow.
And earlier today, like this morning.
Now, Skeptic says, is your watch dead? Is it a digital watch? What kind of watch is it?
Well, it is a digital watch, and it synchronizes with my phone. So my phone synchronizes with the network.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all I needed.
Now, I mean, it is AT&T, but still.
No, but if the battery was dead, it just wouldn't show anything.
Yeah, right. And like I sit there and I watched it to make sure that it ticked over to the next minute, and it did. So it's just, somehow 3 or 4 minutes worth of time went into 1 minute. And then earlier today, I have 2 cats. I have an orange cat and a gray cat. And the orange cat is, I'd say, about double the size of the gray cat. So in the kitchen, my daughter was eating breakfast this morning. The orange cat was looking at her, and the gray cat was looking away from her. She looked down to take a bite of whatever she was eating, looked back up. The gray cat was looking at her, and the orange cat was facing away from her.
Don't mess with cats; they're magic.
And just like a blink of flicker of time there, they switched positions. So,
It's funny you say flicker because my sister and I's best friend growing up, Nikki, her family used to call farts flickers.
Well, I can see how that's relevant. I can see how that's relevant.
I used to find that so weird. So weird. Something that is actually relevant is it's interesting because I don't know if you recall, but in our chat with Santosh on Monday, he asked if anyone else felt like time was messing up. He had mentioned that time felt like it was messing up. He said that random exhaustion just kept hitting him. All of a sudden, time would have passed fast or slow or different things like that. So it's interesting that you had some issues with it as well. I've been having massive issues sleeping. I've been one of those dudes that I used to swear by my internal alarm clock. If I told myself I needed to be up at 6, I could wake up without an alarm clock. I mean, forever I've been able to do that. Over the past week and a half, I've had to set 3 alarm clocks, 2 on my phone, 1 on an actual alarm clock, and I still keep either they're not turning on or I'm turning them off. Because I keep waking up like with 5 minutes before I got to leave. And I'm like, oh God, like it's been happening for like a week and a half now. And that's not like me. And it's so strange. And I'm trying to go to bed early. I mean, everything.
So is that why you smell like Febreze at work?
Yes. And I wear these Mr. T car air fresheners. I have them taped to my armpits. So that I can armpity the fool. Just
party har.
Oh man. Well, before we get into the topic, Josh, I just wanted to lightly touch on the new UAP video that dropped that you sent out to us, that the DoD is talking about and things like that. If you could quickly talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so actually I don't think anybody's talking about it right now.
I'm kind of surprised by that.
Well, that's the point, is that this Twitter account, I can't remember the name of the Twitter account, but this person, I don't know if it's a he or she, but they really want to get some attention to it because it's such a significant video. It's from Puerto Rico.
Right. The NY UAP discussion is what it is.
So it was validated by the SCU, which, if you remember, we had our good friend Matt.
Right, because I remember a Puerto Rico video that he sent us ages ago.
Yeah.
And at first when I was watching this, I was like, is this the same video, just like extended? But no, it's different. It's a completely different video.
So if you have not seen it, it's pretty significant. They were out doing basically a drug run, like, sighting, just to make sure, was anything out there that was looking, running drugs or whatever. And they come across this fast moving object that moves basically across the city, moves down, goes into the water, comes back out of the water, splits in 2, and then the second piece goes into the water and stays. The third piece goes a little bit farther and it goes into the water and it disappears.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's some amazing
crazy
footage, and nobody who's, I saw 3 tweets today, from one from Mellon, one from Tom DeLong, and then one from our good buddy Jeremy McGowan. Mm-hmm. And all of them were talking about the letter from the investigative committee or whatever to the DoD about their expenditure on UAP investigations. Nobody is talking about this Puerto Rico video.
Yep, I'm kind of surprised by it too, man. I guess they, those guys, they probably don't want to talk about it until it's verified, I guess.
But I mean, SCU verified it.
To verify it from their own point of view.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah.
That's I'm going to be honest, though, that right there strikes a nerve with me.
Me too.
Quite a bit, that they constantly refer to credible sources, credible witnesses, like an airline pilot, a military pilot, anybody in the military, really. They're credible sources, and they say it's because they have training to identify and rule out things. But I mean, what makes me not a credible person? Right. Is it because I've never been in the military that makes me not credible?
Yeah.
I mean, I just
my little brother flies planes And I feel like I would be able to spot something and identify it way better than he would.
Well, I mean, when we talk about the stuff that we've seen in my backyard, I'm always quick to, we look at the apps, we look to rule things out.
Mm-hmm.
I know how far off the horizon something was, about how far in the sky it was. I can say all that information, all that jargon that the certified or qualified, witnesses can say. It bothers me that it took pilots coming forward before anybody took it seriously.
Yep. Bothers me too. And then we're getting to the point where Lou and Mellon and those guys feel like that they're the only people that can officially verify anything at this point. That if it's not verified by them, it's not legit.
Right. Yeah.
And that's crusty. Dude, I'm going to use my sister's term. That's real crusty. Like, come on, man. Like, you're not the end all be all because you had a. Well,
that's what I mean. Like, would I love to talk to some of those guys? Absolutely. But something that I realized the other day, not really realized the other day, but something that just kind of pulled at my shirt tail a little bit was, this has been going on for years, hundreds of years, thousands of years. We are not pioneers in this field. They are not pioneers in this field. Gray Barker, Ray Palmer, Alan Greenfield, John Keel, they were the pioneers, if you will, for really what brought it into the mainstream. Yep. These new guys are just kind of riding on the coattails, but still claiming everything they're seeing is like net new.
I know. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
Sorry, my little rant there a little.
No, it's okay. I think that's why people listen to us. We laugh and we have a good time, but we keep our shit serious, man.
Yeah.
And I do. We respect the elders of the ufology, community, like very much so. You're absolutely right. I mean, Jim Mosley, you can add into that. I mean, there's what's his name? Bender or whatever his name is that helped write that book with Gray.
Yeah. I mean, and they did just as much research without nearly the resources that we have today.
Without that rock star money.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. So, but anyways, thank you for sharing that. If you guys want to see that, it is available on Instagram. It is NY_UAP_discussion is the link that we have here on Instagram. It's a full 24-minute video. It's pretty cool. A couple of the folks that are talking on there are going to be at the SCU UFO convention online that they're having. That will be soon, I think. I just got an email about it.
Yep.
I can't remember. I apologize.
Did you also see that MUFON is doing their?
They're doing theirs live. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
if you're a member with the MUFON TV add-on package, you can stream it.
Yeah, I know. I wish I was, but I don't know. I didn't like enough of the stuff on there to do it. But yeah, I'm like, ooh, I'm not far from Vegas. I could get up there. Anyways,
but they're supposed to have some military and some commercial pilots on site to testify. So
but both of these
more credible witnesses. So
more. You're such a douchebag. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get to our topic, Josh. I want to get talking about the Montauk Project. So, but before we get into that, let's take a very, very quick ad break. And, just a reminder, if you're bored while listening to the ads, which we know people can be, go ahead and sign up for our Patreon. It's a perfect time. You can go to fearscapepodcast.com/support and join Wristwatch. We'll see you guys in a few minutes. Good evening, dear friends. I am your headmister, Stefan Gearhart.
And I am your co-mister, the man with no name, Lance Wayne.
And we are the Misters of the Dark.
Join us as we discuss everything from horror books, films,
and even pretty princesses. Join us every other Tuesday in our dilapidated mansion. You never know what's going to happen next.
Only on the FearScape Media Network.
That's a good laugh.
Hey, blanket huggers, Stefan here from FearScape Paranormal Podcast, and do we have a scary good deal for you right now? If you head over to fearscapepodcast.com/Gamefly, you can get a 30-day free trial Gamefly subscription on us. Now, if you're not familiar with Gamefly, it's a game and movie rental service where you can play the hottest video games for systems like the Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, or even the PS4. You can get up to 2 games or movies out at a time, and you can do that an unlimited amount of times a month. Josh and I love to play our game systems, and I am really enjoying the Final Fantasy VII Remake right now. And if you're like me, games are too expensive to buy and beat in the same weekend. Well, with Gamefly, you can get it and keep a game as long as you need. Then you just send it back and get the next game on your list. So head on over to fearscapepodcast.com/Gamefly today and give it a try.
Welcome back. Thank you guys for sticking around after the break for the meaty portion of this sandwich of information that we have.
I mean,
today.
People like meat and potatoes. When you have steak and potatoes, do you eat your potatoes before your steak or after?
I'm a at the same time guy. I take a bite of steak and then a bite of potato, a bite of steak and a bite of potato.
Well, so real quick, not to get too far down on the steak and potato rant, but I like to take a piece of steak, dip it through the potatoes, and then dip it in au jus. And that is the bomb diggity.
That sounds amazing.
Anyway.
Kind of mad I didn't come up with that myself. That sounds delicioso.
Yeah, Longhorn Steakhouse. That's my go-to.
I do like me some Longhorn.
But anyways,
not a
sponsor.
Sadly.
So yeah, Montauk Project.
Right.
So you got knocked out in an alleyway, and from hanging a picture above a bathtub, and when you came to, you drew the cover of the Montauk book. No, sorry. Hashtag back to teacher. So where did you actually stumble across Montauk? Do you remember?
I don't even remember. I think it may be so. I can't even remember, to be honest with you. I'm going to take a guess that a few months ago, you, me, and Santosh stumbled across a TikTok video that talked about someone stumbling upon something on the dark web that had a message board that dealt with a bunch of paranormal UFO things. And so I did a deep dive, since I'm the dark web guy. FBI, you didn't hear that. I took a deep dive into this message board, and I'm pretty sure there was a whole section on the Montauk Project there. And through that, I discovered that there was a book, a number of books actually. Yeah. And there's a number of videos that were out there. I think that Discovery did a thing, one of the episodes of one of their shows, like they went out to where the Montauk Project was and met up with a guy that says he was a part of it because it's a state park now. And this guy was actually like a security guard there, and his boss was all like, it's a crazy video that was on Discovery. His boss was like, you can't talk about this, like some I don't know. It was crazy, dude.
Nobody's gonna want to come to the park if they know.
No, it was not like that. It was scary, like crazy the way it was working out. And the guy's like, he's all, oh my god, I'm freaking out. So, but yeah, anyways, so I think that's how I stumbled upon it. Or it was when I was taking a deep dive into the Philadelphia experiment, which is one of my favorite topics and favorite movies. It may have come up during that. It may have been during that. So
I just know the book cover is a horse, which I have yet to come up with why, other than it looks cool.
I don't know. Maybe there's a horse called Montauk.
I don't know. But so to kind of give a little bit of so the Montauk Project is really, I think it could be summarized as the continuation of Project Rainbow, which was what the original project name was for what people commonly refer to as the Philadelphia experiment.
Yep. And by the way, Montauk is a horse.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
So Bob's your uncle.
Yep.
So, so to give a little bit of, I think, to give justice to the Montauk Project, I think we have to spend just a few minutes talking about, not in depth, but just a few minutes talking about what the Project Rainbow, aka Philadelphia Experiment, was.
Absolutely, because without it, you can't get into Montauk.
Right. So, World War II was bad, right? And I mean, like,
to say lightly, yes.
Yeah. It was a real shift show.
I see what you did there. I remember you saying shit though. That's what.
Oh, okay. But anyway, so no, World War II was significantly bad, and so they were looking at any way that they could. The Allies were looking at any way they could to end the war sooner, and so working with Tesla, they were trying to make a ship invisible to radar.
Right.
And they were doing this by trying to create like a electromagnetic bottle around the ship, which would basically diffuse or deflect any radar signal that happened to come into contact. But what they accidentally did is make the ship invisible to the naked eye, and also transport it a couple of 100 miles to the northeast to like the Norfolk area, and then transport it back to where they were in Bayonne, New Jersey. And so when that happened, all the people who were on board the ship lost their minds.
Yeah, a lot of, well, not everybody, but most of them lost their minds, and then some of them were even found merged into bulkheads and walls.
Yeah,
that they were just a part of it. I mean, we could spend an entire episode just talking about
Philadelphia, but so they abandoned that project, and the lead scientist that was working on that project was moved to working on the Manhattan Project, which was the development of the A-bomb, which ultimately what was used to end World War II.
And there's a lot of folks that believe those guys traveled in time. I mean, in fact, the movie from even the remake, which is awful, but the movie from the 80s, that's what they said, that they went in time into the 1980s, and then they went back, that they were gone for like a solid year. Things like that. So basically, they abandoned the project, or so they thought, or so people thought. They thought, exactly. On the books.
They
abandoned the project, which, come on, we've seen this quite a bit in a lot of these projects where they say that they were abandoned, then we find we find out years later they kept going,
I mean, it's kind of like if somebody's operating a business and they're getting sued, and then they like sell all their stuff to a family member, and then that family member starts up a business doing the same kind of thing.
Just has a different name.
Yep. But it's totally legal.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I don't know if you said this or not, but the ship was the USS Eldridge.
Eldridge, yep.
Yeah, which I think they turned into scrap. They didn't end up like turning it into like a museum or anything.
Well, why would they?
Well, they did a lot of those with the World War II ships. They kept them and turned them into museums and things. But
I mean, there was probably all kinds of weird things going on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like they couldn't melt it down. It's in space right now.
Right. They probably, it's probably one of those that they sunk and it's an artificial reef or something.
Yeah.
And it's inhabited entirely by octopus.
And it's weird because I remember this being called not the Philadelphia experiment, but the Pittsburgh experiment.
No,
just joking.
I don't remember that. I think you're making that up.
Just joking.
Anyways, so the book though is written by a guy, I can't remember, is it Christopher Nichols? Is that his name?
Preston Nichols.
Thank you.
Along with Peter Moon.
Which Preston Nichols almost sounds like a fictitious name.
And it may be. There are a lot of people that think that it's a pen name because he didn't want to say his real name.
Because there are a lot of, like, throughout the book, there are a lot of fictitious names given to protect people. So, But if the real Preston Nichols, or the person who claiming to be Preston Nichols, is still out there and they happen to hear this podcast, we'd love to talk to you. We can transmodify your voice, or whatever, the transmogrify, whatever.
Real Preston Nichols, please stand up. Please stand up. No, because he's dead.
Probably not.
I don't know.
I mean, he would have been in his probably 20s or 30s at the time that the book takes place, was in the 70s and 80s. So he's probably still out there.
Yeah, he's
kicking.
still out there. I'm going to do a little double check while you're talking.
Okay. So anyways, the Montauk Project. So
he gone. He died in 2018.
Oh, okay. Well, no chance of having him on the show. He's out there with June G. Blitzer. So, so he came into play, and he was he had somehow got a grant, which is totally awesome. But he got a grant to do psychic research in an effort to debunk it.
Right, which is amazing.
Well, it's amazing that he got a grant to do psychic research, because
no, this is the 70s and 80s, dude. I mean, look, you had MK Ultra going on. You had all kinds of stuff.
So, but he got a grant to do it, to try to debunk it. In the process of trying to debunk it, he ended up finding a certain wave, kind of like a radio wave, that psychic energy flows on, which I'm really disappointed. In two things. One, in the book, it never tells me what the frequency of the wave is, because I really would like to know that. And B, now that he's dead, I can't ask him what the frequency of the wave is.
Actually, it does, Josh. In the back of the book is
there's
annotations back there, and he has a whole 4 pages about how to build one.
That's right. I remember now that he talks about, there's throughout the book, he calls out all the stuff that's in the appendice. So
Yep. So, that's what I meant. And not annotation, but appendix. Yeah. So in the appendix, he gives you everything.
So that's my next science project. But
that would be awesome.
So he's working with all these psychics. He one of his psychic friends starts noticing that during a certain time of the day, his psychic abilities shut off for 2 hours, and he can't figure out why. So this Nichols guy rigs up some sort of a triangulation machine on top of his car, and he drives around until he finds the source of the signal that is shutting him down. And it's coming from an old radar station at this old Air Force base on Montauk Point. So he inquires to try to figure out, who's operating there. And basically, it's got tight security, the military is operating there, but there's no actual on the books record that the military is operating there.
It's done. There's nothing there. There's dilapidated buildings, big radar satellite thing's still sitting up there. This is on Long Island. It's at the very east end of Long Island, right on the tail there.
And I mean, this is in the, I think when he finds it, it's in the late 70s, I think, or something like that. So then one day he rolls up there, and it's all abandoned. There's just paper strewn everywhere. There's, the gates wide open. It's just, everybody is ghost town. So he goes and he realizes that there's a lot of high voltage equipment there that he would love to get his hands on.
Right, because he's also an amateur ham radio guy.
Yeah.
So he loves all that shit. So he's always hitting. He's basically the American Pickers of the 1970s.
Right.
He would stop at all these people's farms and shit.
But he's only interested in radio equipment,
right?
High voltage equipment,
right?
So, but so he basically inquires about getting a hold of some of that stuff. They say, sure, here's this handwritten note that, if the police ask you something, it might get you okay. So he goes out there with a buddy. They pick over some stuff. While he's there, he runs into a guy that's living on the base who says he remembers him, that he was his boss when he worked at the base.
Yep, even calls him out by name, everything.
Tells him where he used to work. So again, this Preston Nichols guy. He's like, I don't remember this place at all, but yet supposedly he was a boss there. So the guy that he's got helping him pull all this equipment out is a psychic guy, and he's like, hey, do a psychic reading on me right now. So the psychic guy does a psychic reading on him right this minute, and he starts telling him all this stuff about when he was there and when he worked there and all this kind of stuff, and a lot of it is correlating with what this other guy had said. So it's starting to feel like, he basically lived another life where he worked on this base, but he doesn't remember any of it. So then fast forward a little bit, he starts to recall or go through the time when he did work on the base, and also he was working for this other company, which he gave a fictitious name for. I think it was like BLJ or something like that. But and he realizes that he was basically at one point in time working both locations, but somehow he was getting blanked out for the time he was working on the base. And the time that he was working on the base, he was actually like a director of the program.
Yeah, he wasn't no just dude. He was a main dude.
And so one day he's there, and he had like a realization that maybe he worked in this one section. So he decided to tempt fate. So he goes over to the security guard and he hands him his old badge for the section he was in. The security guard just hands him a new badge for the section that he thought he was supposed to be in. Like, yeah, you're supposed to be here. He goes in, he finds his office with his freaking name on a desk plate. He sits down, rifles through the papers, and then like a couple of days later, he tries to go back and do it again, finds the office has been cleared out. Security asks him what he's doing there. This guy pulls him off to the side and says, if you say anything about what you thought you saw, you'll never see the light of day. So, and then, he digs a little bit more. Something about, he's installing some sort of an antenna called a Delta T antenna, and I have not had a chance to really research into what that is. But something to do with a Delta T antenna has something to do with being able to pick up radio waves from time or something like that. So the more he's working on it and the more exposure he has to the stuff that's flowing into the antenna, it basically starts to bridge the gap, and he now merges his two timelines together. And now he can both remember both timelines, and so he recalls everything that was happening when it was at the military base.
Yep, him and a number of other folks.
Yep.
And in fact, I believe when he's like looking through all like the stuff, looking for the pieces of radio and stuff, he even finds like an elevator that had been like cemented in, things like that he saw, which was the elevator he had a memory of that went down like 12 floors.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff that when he was there in the modern day, that it was all cemented over.
Yeah. And so he's like, starts recalling how this guy that sought him out one day when he was still in the modern day doing his investigation, comes into his life. And I think, if I remember correctly, his name was like Cameron or something like that. But his name's not really important, but for the purpose of this story. Right. But he comes into his life, and and his psychic friend's like, I get a bad vibe about this guy, so I'm not gonna.
Duncan, there's Duncan Cameron.
There you go, Duncan Cameron. Mm-hmm. So
they were Duncan Cameron and Al Bielek were the two guys that claimed to have jumped from the deck of the Eldridge while it was in hyperspace.
Right, and so that's how he ends up in present day 1970 something from 1943.
Yep.
And so, so this guy, Duncan Cameron, comes around. His psychic, Nichols' psychic buddy says, I'm getting a bad vibe off of this guy, so I'm just going to, leave now, and I'll catch up with you later. So they start piecing things together. Duncan's like, hey, man, we worked together. You were my boss. And he starts telling him all this stuff that they did together when they were working on the project. So they get really close, and Nichols has him do some sort of a regression, And it comes out that Cameron was actually programmed to infiltrate Nichols, kill him, and then burn down his lab.
Yeah.
And so Cameron's like, well, now that I know that was what I was programmed to do, I'm going to not do that. And I'm going to help you do whatever we can to figure out what happened here. So they start looking at the past memories, and they realize that basically Duncan Cameron was like the key to making all this stuff work.
Yeah, you had him, and also Stuart Swerdlow was another one that had the psionic faculties.
Yeah. So they basically they built all of their machinery around these two guys who had these faculties to be able to do what they needed to do. And so one of the things that they uncovered in their kind of investigations is, and I found this really interesting when I was reading through it, is there's a wavelength that somewhere between 420 and 450 hertz, where if you run that wavelength, you can actually reprogram or program, if you will, people to do things. Like they found that they could program animals to behave a certain way, like run off of a preservation into town, or jump through windows. They could program people to commit crimes, go on a crime spree. They could.
Right. And supposedly they did that to a lot of homeless folks.
Yeah.
In the neighboring area of Long Island and things like that. A lot of homeless folks got messed with. And there's a lot of homeless people that apparently were in shelters throughout the years that had memories of all of this.
So I was looking into it as a side, and I noticed that 432 hertz is apparently the tone. There's a lot of binaural beats out there with 432 hertz. And that's the tone that is aligned to the root chakra, or chakra, whichever is the right pronunciation.
According to Santosh, it's chakra.
So, but that's aligned to the root chakra. And also, if you listen to meditation that uses a 432 hertz, that's supposed to really open up your mind and be able to get to areas of your mind that you can't normally get to.
Is that also the God tone? Is that the same?
No, the God tone is like 31.57.
Oh, okay.
Like
I didn't know if they were one and the same. So, my bad. I was wrong.
Oh, that's okay. Well, but there's actually a really big argument out there when I was looking this up. So all of our music is predominantly tuned to 440 hertz. And there's a big controversy apparently between 440 and 432. And people say that if you actually tune your music to 432, you will make more of a connection to people, because that's the tone that is the universal tone that actually gets to the core of, the person inside the person, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so music that's actually tuned to 432 hertz has a more impactful to the listener, and they're more apt to continue to listen to it and buy everything that comes out, and so on and so forth. So if we do another dome chants, we're going to make sure it's at 432 hertz. So
done. I'll let you do the producing on that one.
So so I thought that was interesting that he calls out the range of when they were somewhere between 420 and 450, and then there's all this stuff around 432 being kind of the universal frequency. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so they're messing with people, and then they get to the point where they build this machine, and I thought this was really cool too. They have this chair.
Yeah, the Montauk Chair.
The Montauk Chair.
Yeah. Is
placed in the middle of these 3 coils that are placed in like a triangle around the Montauk Chair. And when Duncan is sitting in the Montauk Chair, it amplifies his ability. And so it kind of reminds me of the what's the thing from X-Men that what's
oh my God, I can't think of the name of it. Not Mobius.
No, what's it called? The magnification chamber. I don't know. I'm just totally drawing a blank on what it's called right now.
I know, me too.
Cerebro.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's that's what it kind of reminds me of, is that kind of amplification. So they find out that while they're using this chair and they can do different frequencies, that they can actually get Duncan to bring things into physical shape. Like if they get him to focus his mind on an apple, it will bring an apple into existence. Mm-hmm. If they get him to focus his mind on a building will spontaneously exist on the base. And then as soon as they turn the machine off, whatever it was disappears.
Except
and
for
this
Junior.
Huh?
You gonna talk about Junior?
Go ahead.
So Junior is one of the things that kind of brought the Montauk program to an abrupt halt, because Cameron created some sort of Bigfoot monster that was brought into form and proceeded to wreck the base. Was one of the things, and this is where cryptids get involved into this, because there are people in Montauk that still say that they see Junior running around in the state park, because Montauk is now a state park there. Mm-hmm. That many people believe that quote unquote Junior never disappeared, that Junior stuck around and is still like messing with stuff in the park.
Well, so I'm going to bring this a little bit into modern day and harken back a little bit to when we had John E.L. Tenney on the show, mm-hmm. talking about the internet being a psychic network. And if a guy who has outstanding psychic abilities could sit in a chair around 3 frequency enhancers and do that, imagine if you had an entire global world with whatever psychic people are in that world, unbeknownst to them, with think about all the radio waves that were bouncing around, from satellites to Wi-Fi signals and cell phone signals and all that other kind of stuff that are bouncing around all over the place. Have they basically created a worldwide amplification unit, and then all they have to do is influence the intention of the people on the planet to manifest things.
Yep. And it's interesting you brought up Tenney, because we talked to Tenney about this, and I know you may not remember because I was the only one that was deep in Montauk at that point. But in the Montauk Project, there's a point where Nichols discovers through some of the papers that he found a certain type of speaker and amplification system that I don't remember which company, but it was like a very popular sound company like Maxwell or something like that, that had made these certain devices for the Montauk Project. There were only like 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever ever in existence, and 2 of them happened to be at this farm that they found out that this old guy had these 2 things at his farm. And so Nichols goes out there, and the guy wants like $5,000 a piece for them, like, because he's like, he's kind of a jerk and blah 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 blah. And Nichols is like, I just don't have that kind of money, man. But then like a year later, the guy calls him and is like, my memories came back. I was also there. That's how I came into having these. I want to give them to you. And like Nichols goes out there and talks to this guy, and this guy shares his entire experience of being at Montauk, because his memories came back and just gave him this equipment. And I remember we brought this up with John Tenney, because he had talked about someone he met that had a similar story, and I was like, I wonder if this is the same thing, like about a guy going to a farm to get this equipment and stuff. It sounded like the same story.
Well, when they were talking about all the different things they were able to do with this equipment and with different radio frequencies, like they were able to basically, well, with all these people as a fine example, but erase people's memories, or not erase, but suppress the memories.
Right.
they were able to find frequencies where they could stop a motor from running, like vehicles, trucks, and jeeps and stuff driving around the base would just shut down for no reason. They what was it? They found a frequency where they could make things like levitate off the ground. It really made me think, though, about a lot of the early UFO encounters where people's cars would just shut down for no reason. And then, like, not just the electrical pieces, like the actual internal combustion engine would just stop working. And so it really makes me think, if the frequency that they found, because there is some theory that some of those early contactee cases were actually the military messing with people, trying to spread disinformation. Right. And then also, or if they just happen to stumble upon the same technology that, the UFO occupants used for that kind of stuff as well. And so that's, getting back a little bit to the Montauk Chair, there was actually 3 iterations of the Montauk Chair, and the 3rd iteration of the Montauk Chair was supposedly provided by the Syrians, or the people from Sirius.
Right. So now that's what makes this story so compelling, is because we're hitting a lot of paranormal topics at once. We're hitting cryptids, we're hitting time travel, we're hitting psychic powers, experiments and the like. We're hitting some of the cool, stuff from the Nazis, like all kinds of crazy stuff that we've talked about. And now we're really getting into extraterrestrials and this idea that this intergalactic force that we've talked about a number of times, this intergalactic council, so to speak, are working with the government. And so the Syrians, just like you were talking about from Sirius, were providing us with this stuff.
Well, and with the intent of being able to do mind control. Like, that was the whole, like, they knew what the chair was for.
Yep.
They gave it to us for that purpose.
Yep.
And then later on, there was like another part where they couldn't figure out how to expand the range of the signal. And so the Orions from Orion apparently gave us the technology that we needed to expand the signal. So, like, here we have the Orions and the Syrians kind of working together, which tends to go against a lot of the thought that, like, the Orions are where good aliens come from and the Syrians are where bad aliens come from.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. They weren't really working together, so to speak, but they both had a vested interest.
Common friend, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the friend of my enemy is my friend, or the enemy of my friend is my friend.
I think it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Sure. Maybe your Mandela effect says opposite.
Yeah, maybe.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Correct. Friend. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. So, like you said, there's some extraterrestrial pull in there as well. And so you're right. I mean, this whole account has a little bit of everything. And there's even parts where he's talking about somebody later on started having like all kinds of stuff messed with in his house, with like cabinet doors being open, like he thought he had a poltergeist, but
which fits a lot of your theory.
Fits a lot of the stuff that it's people, basically, and it could have been like people were going in his house and doing all that stuff and then blocking his memories that they were there. He could have been doing it, and they could have been blocking the memories that he did it to mess with him. So I mean, it pulls a lot of different things in. So
and some of it, man, even strikes me as reminding me of some of the Teeter stuff. Some of the things he talked about, like how the machine was built and things like that. There are blueprints and stuff out there supposedly of these machines as well, and some of them are similar to John Teeter's information. Seems like Teeter's is more in the future, right? It's like, so here's what it evolved to.
Right. Well, and getting, into a little bit of the time travel stuff, they soon realized that Duncan Cameron could not only manifest things, but he could manifest things in different time periods. So if they told him to focus on 8 p.m., he might really actually spawn that thing into existence at midnight.
Yeah.
So if it was 8 p.m. now, they might, spawn it into existence at midnight. Or if it was midnight, he might spawn it into existence at 6 a.m. the next day. So then they started realizing that, hey, this guy can not only do all this stuff in present time, but he can do all this stuff into the future and then potentially into the past as well. And so, admittedly, I've not gotten into the part of the book that goes into the detail of all the time travel shenanigans that went on. So, Stefan, do you have anything that you can add to the story or the conversation as it relates to all that? Because all I know is that at the end of the day, they opened up a huge vortex and then.
Yeah, I mean, they opened up a huge vortex. Crazy stuff happened. I mean, they were able to go into the future. They were able to go into the past. It even gets further into some of the other books. They talk about getting time locked. There's even like a theory in the, I don't know if it's the next book or the book after, where they talk about they didn't like that Cameron was not liking what was happening because they were wanting him to go back and to change things. In fact, changing things such as like the outcomes of the Civil War or different things like that he was able to go back. And so they time locked him, apparently, supposedly, in this vortex. So they went back, and this is where it gets really sci-fi, but they went back and convinced his father, who apparently also worked for different government organizations, went back and had him sire a different son, but they put Cameron's soul into that, which is where sometimes you'll hear the term the Cameron Boys, because there were two of them, because the one that existed in this timeline, one that existed in a new timeline, but was able to merge over into this timeline. And so that there were two Cameron Boys, both sharing his soul.
Well, and what's really interesting is very early on in the book, they somehow did a brain scan of Cameron and basically found out that he was brain dead. But because of his psychic ability, he was basically able to keep himself going just based off of that psychic energy versus having the brain capacity to keep his body functioning.
Yeah.
They went and did like a brain scan, and they said, all the areas that you see here that are lit up in blue are basically non-functioning, and all the areas that are red are consuming oxygen, and most of his brain was blue. So,
yep. And to give you a quick sidebar, and I don't know if you were planning on talking about this, but one of the big reasons why the Montauk Project has made a huge comeback in terms of people's existence, because of course they wrote the first book in 1982, and the series of books later on, and I think Peter Moon is still continuing. Peter Moon helped write the second book and all the rest. But the reason is because Stranger Things, the show Stranger Things, is loosely adapted based off of this story. Their ideas of the psychic experiments and the things like that, the stuff that happened to Eleven in Stranger Things, were some of the same things that happened to Cameron at the Montauk Project. And so the writers there were fascinated by the Philadelphia experiment, especially Al Bielek, and the Montauk Project and stuff like that. That they, especially that first season or two, like that whole the organization where they get 11 from and all of that is very much inspired by the Montauk Project. So very, very interesting stuff. So it's a hot one right now.
Well, and it's a fascinating read. I have already picked up the next couple books in the series that I want to get into, but I mean it's
because they talk about it. Like, for example, we talked about it briefly, but one of the very first experiments at the Montauk Project was the seeing eye. And this was like, say you could take a lock of a person's hair or some sort of appropriate object, and then Duncan would be able to concentrate on that person and actually be able to see as if he was seeing through their eyes, hearing through their ears, feeling through their body. He could actually see through other people anywhere on the planet. And so that was one of the first things. Of course, the military was really big behind it.
yeah.
Because imagine being able to get in, like, say, if in the 40s, to look through Hitler's eyes and see secret documents, right, and know what things are. But where this really starts to correlate with Stranger Things is when, after the Montauk Chair kind of came in, the children, this is where children, Nichols says that there were boys that were abducted and were brought in and experimented on, and they were even sent through a portal into unknown space time. There were some, they say, was sent back 10 years that they would find 10 years older when they would find them, you know, that there were a number of, they call, and these are the ones that show up like in that video, like I told you, they're called the Montauk Boys. And the number of men, like these people from the 70s there, like all of a sudden are having these memories of being displaced in time, being displaced, going through this portal, going through all these different things. And they realized that not only were homeless people being abducted, but they're finding that a number of children were abducted from their homes by Camp Hero scientists, which is the camp there at Montauk Project, because they wanted to break them psychologically so that they could implant subconscious commands. This all goes into that mind control, just all kinds of crazy stuff. At one point, when we get into the portal, so it says, after several years of experimenting with Duncan in the Montauk Chair, Nichols claims that they could reliably travel to other times and places, even to Mars. They say that they went to Mars. Eventually, they were able to program Duncan with some sort of basic command so that he didn't need to be confined to the chair all the time, because he was getting stressed out being in the chair all the time. And the other guys that they had in the chair, they weren't Duncan.
So they would have to recalibrate the machine to work with those guys,
right?
And they would also not do it completely, and it could result in all kinds of disastrous situations.
Exactly. And at one point, Nichols' superiors told him to turn on the Montauk Chair and just leave it on. This happened through August 12th, 1983. That's how long it stayed on. I think it got turned off at that point. But as the story goes, by having another time travel machine switched on, the Montauk Project successfully created a time wormhole to 1943, which is when the Philadelphia experiment happened. With power at both ends. That's how Ed and Duncan Cameron of 1943 came through the portal, and that is gets into the events described by Al Bielek, of course, with the Philadelphia experiment. And then Nichols kept the Duncan of 1943 away from the 1963 version. So technically, I guess there's three Duncans if we get into the second book as well, but quickly realized that time travel was way too complex and far too dangerous to be messing around with by torturing children and things like that. So he and three colleagues hatched a plan to use Duncan to shut down the project. I mean, it's just crazy, man. And
I really like, because in the very beginning of the book, he says this is written to be nonfiction. And he talks about how there's a difference between soft facts and hard facts, and he's like, a lot of this book is full of soft facts, and the soft facts don't necessarily mean that it's false. It just means that there's not enough evidence to prove it to be true.
Yeah.
And so, he says at the very beginning of the book, this should be read as nonfiction. However, if it's hard for you to read this as nonfiction, you can read it as science fiction.
Yep. And when you get into the following books, they tend to feel way more sci-fi. And a lot of people at that point feel like that they did because Peter Moon came in and got involved with it, that the publishers were pushing really hard and pushed for them to just write books at that point, that the first one is the only one that has any elements of truth behind it, supposedly.
Yeah.
From the people that believe this, not many people believe the following books, just the first one.
Yeah. Which, I mean, the whole thing around, getting another Cameron spawned in the past and putting his soul into that person.
Right. I mean, you get into like heading to the pyramids and stuff like that, which of course there are people think that that's where the idea of Stargate came from, the movie and TV show, because they open a portal and they go back to Egypt and all kinds of crazy stuff later on in the books. So,
but just the one book though was enough to really draw some correlations between some stuff that's happening now, some other conversations that we've had, and just a lot of the even UFO experiences and things like that were talked about, and how different frequencies they found to do certain things. And everybody
Absolutely.
right now you talk to a lot of the let's say the spiritual side of this, of stuff that's going on today, and everybody, like the common theme, I think, is that everybody is saying you need to raise your vibrational frequency, you need to raise your frequency, and so it really, frequencies are very much in the forefront of a lot of that stuff today. And here's a book that basically at its core is just talking about the manipulation of frequencies to do all these different types of things.
I mean, I'm just telling you, I haven't read a book since reading Keel's books where I took pictures of the text to send to you and Santosh constantly.
Yeah.
Because so many things stuck out and answered questions. And then the research you talk about a rabbit hole that you can go on down. It's the Montauk Project, and getting into Project Rainbow and the Philadelphia experiment. And I looked up, remember I told you that there was a documentary that had dealt with it. Well, one of the people that it was in that doc, it actually came from an episode of History Channel's Dark Files. It was on an episode on the Montauk Project. There was a man named Christopher Garantano. He grew up on Long Island, spent years convinced that the government was hiding something sinister beneath Camp Hero, and he documents his search in 2015's Montauk Chronicles, which is really interesting. That's where I watched a lot of great information on this, as well as that episode of Dark Files. And in that episode of Dark Files is where Christopher meets up with another person. This is the security guard, where they meet up with that security guard who is also had some issues there. And so again, it's like, this is one of those things. It's like, before you discount Nichols' story and Garantano's story and Duncan's story as being tinfoil, crazy hat, conspiracy nuts, remember that there are substantial precedents and like validating the existence of secret military experiments. I mean, we've got the Tuskegee study, we've got MK Ultra, and just so much other stuff that's been out there that has come forth. I mean, just Operation Paperclip in and in itself, I mean, is just, this shit happens. And again, not to sound tinfoily, but join the Illuminati, is what have we not gotten disclosed yet, right? Had it not gone for like this huge massive push in the Senate and the Congress to get MK Ultra stuff revealed, they would have never done it. In fact, they fucking set on fire the majority of the files because they didn't want people to know. So it's like, maybe, what if his information his information on Montauk came out, but no one believed him enough, and they were able to get rid of all the files in time because they saw what happened with MK Ultra, right? Because people are like, well, there's no proof. I'm like, what kind of proof do you need? This goes back to what you were saying about credible witnesses, right? What makes a credible witness? Preston Nichols seems pretty credible. Christopher Garantano seems pretty credible. All these different people that are coming forward and have come forward and said that, no, this is here, this is what happened to me. What's it going to take? What is it going to take? I mean, this all boils down to, again, what happens even when we get disclosure, right?
Well,
what's it going to matter?
Well, I mean, and it's something we've talked about before, but I think the people who believe will continue to believe. The people who are skeptics will continue to be skeptics. And I was called out on using the term skeptics. So I won't say skeptics. I'll say the people who refuse, the people who are disbelievers will continue to be disbelievers.
Absolutely.
Because it's okay to be a skeptic. It's okay to ask questions and to probe and try to find the answers to things. There's nothing wrong with being a skeptic. But the people who just blindly disbelieve will continue to do so, because frankly, until they're standing in front of an extraterrestrial that's like walks up and shakes their hand, they probably won't believe, because anything they see on TV they'll say is fake, anything they see in a picture they'll say is fake. So even if the government was able to produce documentation that all this stuff happened, somebody somewhere would just say,
Yeah,
well,
always. We get footage that's blurry, and they say, "Oh, well, look at this, got to be fake." Because why didn't you got an HD camera? Why didn't you get it? Then we get HD footage, and they go, "Oh, well, obviously somebody used CGI and made that."
Yeah.
There is no videographic like proof that's going to be out there for someone who doesn't believe.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, the people who are non-believers will just continue to be non-believers. So.
Right. But I mean, there are little things that are still happening. So, for example, at the epicenter of the conspiracy surrounding Camp Hero at Montauk, of course, is the Cold War era SAGE radar tower. The big radar tower that they talk about. It was the mother station to a series of smaller manned radar towers that were located in the ocean along the East Coast there. They said that this was said to have afforded the U.S. government an extra 30 minutes of warning time in the event of an incoming Soviet nuclear attack. It was very Cold War. Well, of the 12 such similar towers that were once scattered across the country, Camp Heroes at Montauk is the only one that still remains. It's, of course, a natural historical site, and instantly recognizable in Long Island. You can't miss it when you're there. It's 90-foot tall concrete tower, 40-foot wide steel dish are visible for miles. But get this, and there are many reports of this, although it's no longer active, it doesn't keep the dish from mysteriously changing positions continuously.
It's got to be the wind.
That they say it's too heavy, that the wind does not blow it. It's far too heavy. But I mean, I know what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, there are people that have looked into this. And that, it mysteriously changes positions.
All the birds land on one side.
Yeah, on one side.
And it moves.
The giant, the Bigfoot gets up there and goes, and it spins. But yeah, so very interesting. Lots of folks think that it's still there. People think, that the Montauk base, the one that went 12 stories down, went all the way under the town of Montauk. There are people that have been caught getting busted trying to get into manhole covers, and many of the manhole covers have been cemented shut in Montauk. Certain ones, but people say this must be an entrance to the old station or the station that still exists. I don't know.
Well, and here's a conundrum, paradox, whatever. If they did open a time vortex and that time vortex is still operating, can they control the tower from the past?
Yes. If what they say is accurate, how that all they need are two similar devices on either end. So they really get into the book. So it's like they can't just time travel wherever they want to. Like there has to be a device that's already there, or something along those lines for them to do it accurately, right? Like they can send in information via psychically to the past and have someone build it, but they can. So if it's set in 1943 and they're in 1963, that's the only two times they can go to. Right, supposedly. So yeah, it's like maybe there's one that we have in 2021, but it's still sitting back in 1943, and they're back there exactly still controlling it. It according to the information in that book, it's possible.
Or they're in 1983 controlling it.
Right, or in 1983, or well, probably not 1983, but because since the book came out in 82, but
Well, but I mean, in the time when the program was still operating.
Right, exactly, yeah. So I mean, it may still be, like I said, we still may be operating underground.
Well, and also, I mean, think about this, and this is a little bit of a time brain buster here, but even though we're in 2021, 1971 is happening right now in 1971.
Yeah.
So we could, if there is in fact a time vortex, things that are happening for us could still be happening from a previous time.
Well, and get this. So we talked about in our Arizona High Strangeness episode, Dreamy Draw Dam, right? Which was the Army Corps of Engineers. Well, guess who's in charge of the park at Camp Hero there is the Army Corps of Engineers, who have for years been working on it. And they say that they're still trying to ensure the safety of the visitors, making sure that there's no bombs or landmines or bullets or grenades. And it's been 40 years. So, again, Army Corps of Engineers. I'm just saying.
I think I see a FOIA in your future.
Yep, I'm still waiting to hear back from the FOIA for Dreamy Draw, man. But I don't think I had enough accurate information, so gonna have to.
Yeah, you have to be very specific, like what date and time you're looking for. You know.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Where the sun was in the sky.
I know. It's so frustrating because it's like, well, I need that information to have the specific information.
So, let me just open up a vortex, go back in time, and get that detail so I can submit it.
Let me get them deets, girl. But yeah, anyway, so the Montauk Project, we highly recommend checking out the book Montauk Project by Preston Nichols. You can read the other ones as well. They're pretty interesting. I'm over halfway through the second one, but it definitely feels out of place. It's very first person. It's very different. Things like that. There's a lot of information online. YouTube, I think that Christopher Garetano, I think you can see his doc that he did on YouTube. I'm very certain it's on YouTube for free. There's just a lot of information there, and we haven't even scratched the surface on it.
Well, and if I could say, the movie that would be fitting for 2021 would be a movie for Montauk Project.
Yeah.
Like this first book would make an excellent movie.
I've said that too. And I guess Stranger Things is as close as it's gonna get, I guess.
Yeah.
Until then, I mean, they were more focused on the psychic powers and the Demigorgon and stuff like that, which was their version of Junior. So
yeah.
Anyways, thank you, Josh. Thank you for taking a look at that. I've been wanting to talk to you about this for quite some time, so I'm very excited. We finally found some time to dig into this, and I just got this weird feeling this is going to come up a lot more, especially into some of the stuff that me, you, Santosh, and Olaf are digging into. We're getting into some of that craziness there that's happening over at Wristwatch, of course, which is our Patreon account. I think that we're going to find that some of this stuff may be connected. Some of this, I don't even want to give away some of the stuff. If you want to find out, you got to get on Patreon, patreon.com/fearscapepod or fearscapepodcast.com/support. Join our Patreon, join the investigation with us, man. I'm telling you, there's some crazy stuff happening, and we're slowly releasing the information that we're finding, and it's fascinating.
Yep, by all means.
Fascinating. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and let's get out of here, man. I want to get to our listener story here before we rock and roll. But I'm still shaken because I just never have I been so I believe before when I've read these books. I've always had such a skeptic's eye, but all of this, I'm just like, this just feels right. It feels right. So, and I don't get that from the second book. So, I mean, it just tells you, it's like, there's just something about it, man. Montauk Project.
So real quick, while you're getting to the listener story, I want to add that I'm listening to a book right now by Valiant Thor that's talking about the secret underground bases in the world, I guess. Mm-hmm. And apparently there is one of the last Lemurian cities under Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta, yeah, I've heard that before, actually.
Well, you should have, because Olaf talked about it quite a bit.
That's where.
Yeah.
Tying it back to Olaf.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting that Olaf was talking about all the different stuff and things that he's seen out around Mount Shasta. Mm-hmm. And here this book is talking about one of the last Lemurian cities is deep underground.
You need
Mount
to drop
Shasta.
that in our WhatsApp to him.
I certainly will.
Add that to the conversation.
Yep.
So before we get out of here, of course, I want to hit our listener story. You can send those into fearscapepodcast@gmail.com or anywhere, really, that we're at. But this one comes from a listener named Kenneth out of Tennessee.
So I worked as a haunted tavern tour guide in Nashville, Tennessee, and there was one tour group that caught me off guard. A woman in the group pulled me aside at the second stop and said she was a medium. She was super uncomfortable being there. Her in-laws had purchased the tour tickets for her and her family as a gift, so they thought she'd have fun. And that she said she needed some time to tell me some stuff that she had seen so far. So we were at a stop. We were in the basement of one of the riverfront bars where slaves used to be chained to the walls before being shipped downriver in the mid-1800s. She told me that she saw a man chained to the wall crying and begging an unseen person to spare the life of this little boy. It gave me goosebumps, but I couldn't tell if she was messing with me or not. When we got to the final bar stop, I took my group upstairs to what used to be an apartment. I told the story of a woman who fell down the staircase and died, and how everyone had assumed her husband had pushed her. He is still frequently seen standing at the top of the stairs by staff. The medium came up to me again at the end of the tour, and she told me that that man didn't push her. He still stands there because he feels so guilty that he was not there to help her. She also told me that the original staircase was moved to its current location during a renovation. I took what she said with a grain of salt, so I decided to tell my boss everything she told me. Well, to my surprise, he confirmed that the staircase had actually been moved many years ago, just like she said, but there was no way she could have known. I believed her after that, and I never looked at that tour the same way again.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, here's a guy that got pudding in a very different kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, I can imagine being told that. Because, it's like Connor, when Connor told us some of his stories from working at the Shining Hotel, the Stanley Hotel there.
Right.
Some of the things, like, he would have a psychic that would come in sometimes and be like, hey, this happened. And he's like, how did you know that? Just those things that confirm for you.
Yep, exactly.
So, but thank you so much, Kenneth, for sending that in. We really, really appreciate it.
Yep.
But Josh, I want to get out of here. Just want to remind people to check out fearscapemedia.com for all of our other Fearscape Media Network shows. You can also go to the Google Play Store right now and pick up our app for free. It has every one of our podcast shows on there. So you can have quick access to every single show, like Misters of the Dark, Ghosts in the Attic, Bodies in the Basement, Memories of Cain, etc., etc. You'll want to check that out. It's free. Should be coming to the Apple Store eventually. So we'll be getting that there for all you freaks that use Apple. Just kidding. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for tuning in as you usually do. We are so thankful every week to have this opportunity to share all this information with you. But we're going to get out of here again, like I said. So I'm going to wrap things up by saying thank you. This has been Stefan. Keep your eyes to the skies.
This has been Josh. The truth is now.
And remember, folks, hold those blankets extra tight because things tend to get spooky when you're listening to Fearscape. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed this guidepost on the road of high strangeness with us. And we thank you, as always, for listening and joining our caravan to the weird and unknown. Please consider supporting us as we continue our journey to find the answers we all seek. FearScapePodcast.com/support.